everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Profiles in Canada, the Scouts Canada web series, where we connect with Canadians who use their talents for the full in the interests of their country. And of course, there's no better example than who we have here today, the Premier of Nova Scotia, the 27th Premier of Nova Scotia, Darrell Dexter, who represented his riding of Cole Harbour for 15 years. And among his constituents, of course, were Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, but also the 5th and 6th Cole Harbour Scout groups, and of course the PEC Scout Group, the Portland Estates and Colby Scout Group, which is actually one of the largest in our country. While Premier Dexter served as chair of the Council of the Federation, was essentially the organization that keeps the provinces and three territories working together. It's become very important, actually, very recently. And he won in 2009 the Climate Leadership in Canada Award from the United Nations Climate Change Conference. Premier, thank you so much for joining us here today.
No, it's my pleasure to be with you.
All right, I'll start with a question that you might get frequently when you're in other parts of the country, being the former Premier of Nova Scotia. Why should everybody visit Nova Scotia who isn't from there, although probably not all at the same time?
Yeah, not all at the same time. Be a lack of hotel rooms. Well, Nova Scotia is just simply a beautiful province, and it offers so much to see. Beautiful seascapes. I think one of the most beautiful islands anywhere in the world, and it's been voted that many times, the island of Cape Breton, all down along the South Shore, and of course the remarkable city of Halifax, which is, the home to many great university institutions. It has a younger population, which is extremely lively. It's got a great waterfront. There are many festivals and events that take place year round. So yeah, no, we welcome everybody in Nova Scotia, and come and have some lobster.
That's great. Well, I will say actually, the most recent Canadian Jamboree that we had was in Nova Scotia, at Camp Nadui. So maybe people watching at home remember that fondly. I certainly do. You grew up, obviously, partially in Halifax, partially in rural Nova Scotia. Did you ever imagine that one day you would be leading your province?
No, I was a pretty precocious kid. I never thought there was, I never thought there were any limits on the things that I could do. And my parents encouraged that. I was a joiner. I joined everything. I
Including
played,
Scouts?
including Scouts.
Including Scouts.
I was in Scouts. I was in 4-H. I went to 4-H camp at Camp Rankin in Cape Breton. Then when I was in high school, I joined every club from chess to creative writing to sports teams. Just yeah, I was a very kind of active kid, always kind of looking for, the next opportunity to learn something, or the next opportunity to have some kind of an experience. And for the most part, that inquisitive nature, that idea that you could kind of do or be anything you wanted, has been kind of the hallmark of my life.
That's awesome. Well, actually, before entering politics, you were a lawyer, you were a command information officer with the armed forces, you were a journalist. From that diverse background, I'll ask you, why were you drawn, or what drew you to a career in politics?
Well, again, if you go back really early, I was kind of probably one of the few kids in my high school who had subscriptions to every magazine like Newsweek and Time, and so I read on current events. I was a person who read the newspaper daily. I was very interested in kind of what was going on around me, and how people made a difference. And I came from a very working class family. My dad was a sheet metal worker. My mom worked part-time in a grocery store. And neither of them had graduated from high school. So they weren't, this was not an academic environment to grow up on, but they really valued education. They realized that if you were to move forward, then education was really necessary. So they encouraged my reading. They encouraged my exploration of educational opportunities. So it was really kind of through all of that I realized that, you know, the future requires you to be involved, and of course, the way that we make constructive change in this country is through the democratic institutions we had. And I recognize that. I also recognize that going to law school was going to give me a kind of insight into,
Mm.
how legislation was drafted, how laws made differences in people's lives, and just kind of philosophically, I felt that you needed to to be part of a community, you needed to participate. And I did that, before politics and all kinds of different organizations. I was on committees at my credit union. I was on the board of the local chapter of the VON. I was on the board of the Dartmouth General Hospital when we were living in Dartmouth. Whenever I had an opportunity to plug in to try and make a difference, I took that opportunity.
Well, just drawing on that, why do you think it's so important then that young people are civically engaged today?
Well, it's said over and over again that young people are the future, and that's, even though it's maybe a shop-worn phrase, it is also has the benefit of being absolutely true. And the biggest kind of straw man I always have to knock down is, that politicians are all the same. I mean, you hear people
Mm.
say that over and over again, and it is not true. Politicians come from different backgrounds. They come with different experiences. They come from different communities, and it is those things that allows them to contribute and to shape the community, the province, and the country they live in. And it's important. And one of the great things about our country is the pluralistic nature of the voices that end up in our parliament and in our legislatures. And it is necessary to have all of those voices be heard in those institutions. And that's how we built a successful society.
Mm. Oh, that's incredible. Well, let's talk about then your time as Premier. In 2012 to 2013, you were the chair of the Council of the Federation, which is what we mentioned earlier. Something that's increasingly important is how the provinces can best work together. I wonder if you might reflect on your time working with the other provinces and maybe speak to why it's important, perhaps now more than ever, to interact, to work together better between provinces and territories.
Yeah, well, when I was the chair of the Council of Federation, we had premiers across the country who came from every political party,
Mm.
and um, the one commonality that they all had was they were interested in, what was best for the country and what was best for their province.
Mm.
So there was just a sincerity about the work that was being done by those people, I think the benefits are enormous when provinces work together. I mean, we set up the Pan-Canadian Pharmaceutical Alliance at the
Mm.
time, which was seeking to create an atmosphere or even a buying group where we could get lower prices on pharmaceutical drugs, which is, a major cost driver in the healthcare system. We did a number of working groups to look at specific issues, including renewable energy and the way that we could go about combating climate change. It was a very constructive organization, a constructive group of people, and it gave us a unified voice in many regards when we were speaking with the federal government to say, look, these are the priorities that we, as the premiers of the country, that we would like the federal government to pay attention to and to, provide us help in terms of, moving those priorities forward.
You mentioned the Pan-Canadian Pharmaceutical Alliance, of course, which is designed to get lower prescription drug prices, which is very important to many Canadians. Something about free healthcare is just in the Canadian national identity. Why, if you might provide your perspective, obviously having been a premier of Nova Scotia, why is it that the idea of universal healthcare, free healthcare, has struck such a chord in Canada?
Yeah, it's kind of one of the kind of defining features, and as I mean, I think it just goes back to a core common value of that people have from one end of this country to the other. That if you need healthcare, it should be available where when you need it. It shouldn't be a matter of only getting the healthcare that you can afford,
Mm,
which is what happens in many countries in the world. And I think it comes from a perspective. It comes from if you want an ideological belief that in this country we have a commonwealth.
mm,
That the resources that we have, that the society we have built, comes from the fact that we have one of the largest storehouses of natural resources in the world. We have built an economy that is democratic so that people can participate in it. And from that comes this commonwealth, and that commonwealth, not like the commonwealth that you think of in terms of the British Empire, but from that commonwealth, it allows us to provide a level of social programs and supports for people, including healthcare. And I think that's an enormously important aspect of what it is to be Canadian.
Let's keep talking about Canada. Maybe then on a more personal note, what has being Canadian meant for you? What does Canada mean for you?
Well, as I say, it is the fact that we have built this society that seeks to provide, not only support for everybody, but opportunity for everyone. And as a result of that, as a result of the fact that Canadians are kind, giving, and generous people, we are respected around the world. And I've been privileged to, for example, be a part of election observation missions in other countries. I was the head of mission for the National Democratic Institute in Tunisia after the Arab Spring. So I was in Tunisia for their parliamentary and presidential elections. I was in Ukraine in 2019 as
Wow.
part of the election observation missions there. And whenever I would go to these countries, when they would find out that you were Canadian, there was kind of this kind of immediate acceptance, because they knew that you were there to help. You were there to provide good advice. And so no matter where I've gone, that has made me extraordinarily proud to be a Canadian. And that and the the simple fact that uh, um, this is a privilege. It's a privilege to be a Canadian, and part of that privilege means that we should, demonstrate our values to other people in the world.
Yeah. Wow. I will ask just one last question then of you, Premier, and thank you, of course, for being here. Young Canadians throughout the country, they're wondering how can they give back? How can they find what they're good at, what they're passionate about in a way that helps themselves and also helps their communities and their country? What advice would you have for them?
Yeah, well, I would say never stop being curious. Never be shy to ask questions. Uh, don't uh, don't be afraid to take a chance. Um, uh, many times I was told that the things that I wanted to do were not possible,
Hmm.
and I just never accepted that. I always believed that we're only limited by our own willingness to listen to naysayers. So Life is an extraordinary and sometimes complicated thing. And when you're in my age and you look back, you think that there's kind of a straight line between where you were and where you are. But the reality is that there were all kinds of decisions that seemed to go in all kinds of different directions over those years. And I think if you do that with good faith, if you do everything that you do with enthusiasm, if you maintain that sense of curiosity and inquisitiveness, then you'll be a success.
Wow. Well, Premier, from Scouts to the Premier's office, thank you very much for sharing your
But
story here with us today. Um, to everyone at home, thank you for joining in. Obviously, we're going to be back in a couple of weeks for another incredible interview with another incredible Canadian who uses their talents to the fullest in service of the common good. So thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you, Premier, for being with us. Cheers.
it's my pleasure. Thank you.